Hello, BookTube. Recently, just this morning, I watched a video from the notorious Shelly Swearingen, who started off her video, as she starts off all of her videos, by staring dead into the camera and saying, "You would not want to be staring like that at me." And she did a video about a recent article from the New York Times by Alita Becker on standout recent historical fiction. I'll leave a link to her video down below. It was really, really good, and it, of course, got me thinking about recent historical fiction. It doesn't take much to do that. And I thought I would make a corresponding video of recommendations or discussions of my own. No offense to Alita Becker, of course, but I read a lot of historical fiction, a lot more than Alita Becker does, a lot more than anyone does. So I thought I'd weigh in with two parameters, two guidelines before we start, as a reflection on current historical fiction trends. Because there are two current historical fiction trends that are so bad, they are so out of control, that they actually dictate my reading. They prescribe books. I will not read books that fall into these are bandwagons so crowded that they're embarrassing. They're meme-worthy. The first is a title. We're talking very superficial here. Titles and book covers. If your title has the preposition of Auschwitz, I will not read it. The butcher of Auschwitz, the baker of Auschwitz, the librarian of Auschwitz, the dancing girl of Auschwitz, no matter what it is, if it has that prepositional phrase of Auschwitz, I won't read it, if it's fiction. And then there's the other bandwagon, which is by far the bigger one. Oh my God, I have been observing and noting and mocking book world fads for a long, long time. A long time. I notice them right away when they happen, and I mock them because they show a herd think that is antithetical, you would think, to the publishing world. But the other bandwagon it puts all of those previous fads to shame. I have never seen a fad so universally followed as the back of a woman. Basically, is how you would describe it. A woman walking away or standing with her back to you. The back of a woman has become so incredibly universal in June or July, American mainstream publishing industry, and in the higher profile indie publishing industry. Probably 400 works of historical fiction have come out. It goes without saying that 99.9% of them, so 397 of them were written by women, but also 395 of those 400 had a variation on the back of a woman standing or a woman walking away from the viewer as a cover design. And I have reached the point since I have now, in the last 10 years, conservatively speaking, I have seen 10,000 covers like that. Virtually all of the covers for historical fiction in June and July in the American book market are that cover design. Virtually all of them. Given that fact, I no longer want to even touch those books. There's be a huge incentive for me to even go near them, much less read them. So we can leave those out. We can leave. If I'm ruling out those two things, admittedly superficial, but nevertheless, I never want to read a novel called The Something or Other of Auschwitz again as long as I live. And if you are so brain dead, so hope you're doing well, so autopilot, that you're going to give your book the cover of a woman's back, then I don't have any hope for the inside of the book if that little thought went into the outside of it. So leave those two aside for the minute here, and we will move on to some books. And the first one I want to start with is something I praised on this channel before, very nice, solid trade paperbacks coming out this month, might be out already. And it's not quite historical. It often gets lumped in with historical fiction, but it's Arthurian, which is a big gray area when it comes to historical, actual history. But this is The Bright Sword by Lev Grossman, which I cannot praise this book highly enough. I have mentioned many times on this channel over the years that male authors will often have an Arthurian book gnawing away at them. I don't know why that is. But that has always been true. Literally always. That has been, or not, that has been true at least as long as the basic bare bones mythology of Arthurian legend has been common currency in the West, in the English-speaking world. At least as long as that has been true, this germ has affected writers of every stripe imaginable. And I assume that's the reason why it got to Lev Grossman. But he did a really good job. A lot of those books are really good. And this does a really, really good job. This is terrific. I wanted to start the list off with it because I worry that there are readers out there, maybe some listening to me right now, who see the word King Arthur, the word Arthurian, and think, well, okay, you do you, but I am not interested in anything Arthurian. I already know that. I've tried some of it, and I just... It's working on priorities that I just don't have, so I'm going to pass. I would urge you to reconsider when it comes to this book. Actually, I'd urge you to reconsider when it comes to a few of them, but we'll settle for this one. Then we have a Western. This is by William Johnstone and J.A. Johnstone. One of you told me once upon a time what the relationship was there, not only genealogical but also pulmonary. I might understand that William Johnson is dead and that J.A. Johnson is some sort of relative who writes these books, or am I being premature? Either way, this is a mass market Western, and I used to ignore these things, but thanks to June on the Range, I now read them. And this was terrific. It's an hour's read. It's not Turgenev, but it is terrific. It's these men chose hell. And you can see it's a Fort Misery Western. And Fort Misery is it's in the Yuma Desert, the border of Arizona and Mexico, and it's actually Fort Grierson. But it is a miserable posting, hence the nickname, Fort Misery. It's a miserable posting. The natives are hateful. The people are hateful. The environment is entirely hateful. It's like serving time on an open skillet, as one character puts it. And the U.S. soldiers who have been sent to man Fort Misery are the dregs of humanity. They are people who have had murder sentence commuted. They are horse thieves, robbers, you name it. They've been sent there. This is their choice. You can either face the music at whatever penitentiary you happen to be in, which will probably be hanging, although who knows, you might get taught to read and write. Of course, the rest of it ain't so good. Or you can serve at Fort Misery. And so that is our cast and crew. That is the cast that we get in these books. And it's a very intriguing American Western variation on the science fiction idea of like the Bad Batch or the grimdark collection of lovable losers, or maybe not so lovable losers that you see in fantasy. It's very, very winning. It's really a good formula. And here, that formula is doubled and tripled over by putting those characters in an extremely unlikely scenario, because a group of blue bloods, a group of intellectuals, professors and whatnot, archaeologists and whatnot, come to Fort Misery because they're in search of an archaeological treasure. But somebody ends up dead. So this ends up being, of all things, a murder mystery. With a group of protagonists who are about as least adapted for the purpose of sniffing out a killer as anyone you could imagine. I thought it was adorable. Just adorable. I just loved it. Then we have something by James Grady. Unfortunately, not an author I think will be familiar, although he wrote 6 Days of the Condor, which was adapted into a movie. So he has had his share of the limelight. He is really, really good. He isn't really known for that, but he is really, really good. And he has a new historical novel. It's set in the middle 20th century, but so 60 years ago, that counts. When I was an editor for an online historical novel review, our guideline was always that it's a historical novel if the main body of the action takes place 50 years before the date of publication. So this certainly qualifies. This is a whole lifetime before. This is American Sky, and that is not Doug Sensor Martin on the cover. This is about a young man named Luke, who's living in, middle of nowhere, Montana, while the country America is being convulsed by social forces and assassinations and even pop culture things. And Luke is it's a very typical thing for James Grady. He is a very good portrait, affectionate but totally honest, totally unflinching. He alone is worth reading this novel. But the novel itself, Grady has such a wonderful narrative style. It's easygoing, but also tough. I loved it. Just loved it. I have a feeling that you would probably love it too. We'll move on. We won't move far. We'll move from Montana to this is this be Nevada, I think. I think this is Nevada. It's a historical novel in the same sense as American Sky, in that it takes place in the middle of the 20th century. This is by Richard Babcock, and it's called A Small Disturbance on the Far Horizon. And it's about a deputy sheriff who is having an affair with a married woman. And she's married to an overbearing clod. And he ends up dead. So there's another murder mystery going on here. Another it's not really a mystery as to what goes on, but it's definitely crime. Crime shoots its way through here. So it's plot-wise, it's a more distracted book than American Sky, but still really good and really eloquent. I wish that more contemporary fiction was like this and American Sky. I really do. I'm ordinarily not my favorite time period to read about, but I'll take it. Absolutely. Some of my favorite time periods to read about, one of them anyway, is on this list. But it has the same basic elements as These Men Chose Hell. Not an entirely likable central cast, and also the thrilling, lightning bolt imposition of a murder. I strongly recommend it. Maybe get it from your library. Then we have, this is by Ron DiCristoforo, and I didn't know what to make of this book at all. This is set, again, in the middle of the 20th century. It's set in the 1960s. So that's, 60 years ago. That's long enough for historical fiction. Set in Philadelphia, in the Drummond College for Boys. So it's a boys' college / boarding house / reformatory or whatnot. It's called This Way Out. And these boys are the ultimate hard luck cases. No one wants them. And the place that is behind the doors of this college that is supposed to be a sanctuary is very much not. There are full-blown predators swimming the waters behind those doors. And you don't always know who they are. The boys are pretty savvy. All of them are pretty savvy, with one exception. I don't think he's supposed to be the narrative focus, but he's the one you'll remember. But in addition to that dodgy world inside, where the cliche would be that all the boys really have is each other, that turns out not to be true. There's also the outside world, which, just like in American Sky, is being roiled all over by social issues. And in the mid-1960s in Philadelphia, you would have been hitting those social issues head on. And this is wonderful. Just wonderful. Your toes will be curled with tension the whole time, because you care about these boys, but they are as vulnerable gets in every way imaginable. It's the emotional vulnerabilities that will really strike you, but in every way imaginable, they don't have anything to cling to. Such a weird choice to set a book, but so good, so well done. Then probably my favorite on the list here, I don't know, American Sky cuts it close, but this is probably my favorite on the list. This is by Phil Melanson. You'll have to pardon the dumb cover. This is Florenzer, and it is a novel about with 3 narrative focuses. There's a guy named Francesco, just a character named Francesco. The narrative invests a lot in him, I think, because he is more approachable, more investable by the reader than the other 2 main narrative focuses, which are Lorenzo de' Medici and Leonardo da Vinci, which they're going to have. Those 2 are going to have a certain amount of remoteness to them. I don't think that's legitimate, and certainly the book, which is all about the nature of being from Florence, the book comes closer to making Leonardo da Vinci a believable three-dimensional character than a lot of historical choices that I have seen. The portrait of Lorenzo de' Medici, the very young Lorenzo de' Medici, is hampered in this book. I don't want to criticize the author too much, because he does a great job. Narratively speaking, this would never let you go. In my opinion, the narrative portrait of Lorenzo de' Medici, especially, not Leonardo and not Francesco, is hampered by what I can only assume is a lack of knowledge, a lack of research about Lorenzo de' Medici. I would be willing to, I could be wrong about this, I could be completely wrong about this, but I'd be willing to bet that Phil Melanson has read maybe 2 biographies of Lorenzo, nothing outside of English, and none of Lorenzo's own writing or correspondence. And as a result, it doesn't hurt the book. The book is fantastic. But as a result, Lorenzo feels more remote than the other 2. But still, this is just amazing. Just an amazing historical novel. Set in the Renaissance. Not exactly common to have happen for them to be any good. There's plenty of historical fiction set during the Renaissance, even published in June and July. Lots and lots of Renaissance matrons with their back to you. But it's hard to do it really it's hard to really capture it, the electricity of the time, and this author does, very much so. Then we have an author who will need no introduction. A lot of these have needed introductions, unfortunately. But this one, Ken Follett, needs no introduction. This is a new historical novel of his called Circle of Days, which is about the people involved in the significance of Stonehenge. A small cast. What are we doing? Are you going to move somewhere? You going to go over there to your chair? Yes, you are. Must be too hot up on her shelf. This is a Stonehenge novel. I've read 5 or 6 historical novels in my 28 years about some people involved with Stonehenge. This is big. It's opulent. It's Ken Follett in a more relaxed tone than his last couple of books, I think. It takes a while to get into that, to get into the rhythm of that, but it works really well. The rhythm, actually, the narrative rhythm of this thing reminded me of Jean Auel, Clan of the Cave Bear. It reminded me more of that than it did of anything that Ken Follett has written. I don't know if that's old age. He's got to be getting old. He's got to be in his 60s at least. But I really enjoyed this, though. I really think I think it'll do well in England. But I think if you're interested in Stonehenge, if you've ever been there, if you're the stereotypical American who has gone to Stonehenge and said, "I wasn't expecting it to be so small," if that's true and you're fascinated by it, you will definitely want to read it. And then we will finish up. We'll finish up this impromptu list of historical fiction, just as a compliment to Alita Becker's, as a compliment to Shelly Swearingen's video. We'll finish it up with BookTube's own Janet Workman. This is Nothing Proved. This is the first book in a new trilogy that she's writing about Queen Elizabeth I of England. You might have seen the video where she and I talked about this book, among other things. This is the first book in an Elizabeth trilogy, and it deals with Elizabeth before she's Elizabeth. It deals with Elizabeth when she is a young woman in the most perilous position imaginable. She is the bastard daughter of a dead king, and her half-sister is on the throne. First her half-brother, then her half-sister is on the throne. And the half-brother is too young, and the half-sister is half-sane and also Catholic, revanchist Catholic. And neither one of them, nor their especially her sister Mary, her foreign suitors, none of these other people, the other people in the outer orbit of the immediate Tudor bloodline, are all that happy with a spare princess hanging around. The typical course of action for a spare princess is the block. It's not good enough for you to sequester them. They're a danger to your reign. Just by being alive, they're a danger to your reign. And there were plots. There were plots and intrigues. There were rebellions, full-scale rebellions, but there are also plots and intrigues. And the idea, the speculation about the young Elizabeth forever and ever, from her own day till now, has been how much she knew about those plots, whether or not she was involved in them. She herself, her behavior, was as scrupulously careful as any white shoe lawyer in a corporation in Manhattan. Everything dotted and crossed and in triplicate. Nevertheless, you could die for less than that. And Janet Workman captures the multiple voices and also the tension of that time wonderfully in this book. You know, if you know anything about English history, you know how this particular volume of the trilogy ends. You know that already. You've known that since grade school. Which is that young Princess Elizabeth becomes queen. And we know what she had no idea of knowing, nor any of her partisans, who risked a lot to be her partisans. None of them could have known it either. Is not only how long she would be on the throne, but that she would be widely regarded as one of the greatest monarchs in English history. In my opinion, only exceeded by her successive namesake. Nobody knew that at the time. And the amazing thing, the toughest ask of any historical novel about a young Elizabeth is making your reader forget that. You want to increase tension in your book. You want to introduce it and increase it as the stakes up. And Janet Workman manages to do that in this book. So I figured it was fine to end our list this way. So there you go. Some historical fiction for you to consider in addition to Alita Becker's list. I'll leave a link to Shelly Swearingen's video down below, and I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.